You cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanya Diamond.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited as usual. That's just definitely my state, it seems. And excited about multiple things today, other than the fact that my life is pretty amazing. And my coughing's finally starting to stop. I believe that Gary and I are both excited because we're not as sick as we were.
Not as sick, but I'm still there.
Yeah, and so we're excited to start getting our real voices back.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. And I have just a lot on my plate. I've got 6 assistants now, 6 assistants that are helping me build this incredible business of learningtantra.com into something magnificent that we're taking on the road. A bunch of coaching programs coming up. The one that we're launching next week is Men and the Dating Etiquette for Men. And once you're on a date, what is it that you really need to do to win a woman over? So I'm very much looking forward to launching that. And, you get to go on dates with a couple of my beautiful assistants. Today, I have an amazing man who we met through an interesting venue. I believe I'm actually going to be a chapter in one of his books coming up. And through talking, I think we're both having an amazement about each other. But his name is Jim O'Connor. Hi, Jim. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Tanya. I'd be glad to. I'm basically my career is public relations. I've written a couple of books. My most popular book or most hated book, depending on how you look at it, was about swearing, how to control your swearing. And that got a lot of attention in the media. And the reason I'm talking to Tanya is I attempted to write a book called True Lust, Confronting the Male Sex Drive. And my literary agent said, "You're not an expert, Jim." I said, "I talk to experts. I've done research. I have an opinion." Mm-hmm. But he wouldn't take it on. But I still have always been extremely interested in that topic, and I still read about and study on it.
I think he may change his mind because you may have an expert in your pocket now.
That's true,
so to speak, and we'll do this.
That's true.
Do this book, and so you're writing. You're interested in this topic, men and lust. So what is it that you wanted to say about that? Let's just jump right in there.
Well, I think the premise of my book was that that basically all things in nature are in balance, but I feel that nature, or God, depending on how you want to put it, made a mistake by making the male sex drive too intense. And as a consequence, we have many, many social ills that are resulting from men's inability to really control their sex drive.
And, I mean, you had cited a couple of things like presidents in the White House and what men will jeopardize.
Yeah, smart men will do stupid things. Here's Bill Clinton almost got impeached. Elliot Spitzer, governor of New York, lost his position and lots of other things. But, there's something as simple as not being able to pay attention when you're working with a sexy girl. Then there's flirtation. Then there's infidelity, which can lead to divorce and ruin careers. But there's such things as these child pornography, incest, child molestation.
Yeah, I don't think and it's interesting. We're going to talk about this because I'm not certain that that's driven by lust. I'm not certain that a lot of these things that you might be talking about are just strictly lust driven.
Well, we can talk about that because I think it's certainly a large part of it.
I'm big on the evolution. I do not believe, men's evolutionary design is not to be monogamous. And people are so shocked when there's actually somebody saying that out loud.
Well, lots of anthropologists have made that point. And yet why are we so shocked when there's a sex scandal?
Right. Well, I think part of it is we hear that is how it is, that men are not made to be monogamous, but we're not really understanding then what can we do about that? And what Tantra teaches and what can help is that it has to do with ejaculation. And so what happens is if you actually take that particular part out of the equation, because it's after a man does that all of a sudden he shuts down and is not quite as interested in the person that he's with anymore, and then he needs to go sow more seed elsewhere.
Yeah.
And in Tantra, when you learn to have a difference between ejaculation and orgasm, when you learn to separate those two and actually go ahead and make that different, it's not that burning problem anymore. So I think that's really where we need to step up in our education.
Well, I think maybe a lot of your listeners already know this, but I'm not too clear what the difference is between ejaculation and orgasm.
Right. Well, ejaculation and orgasm are two, I mean, usually they happen a little bit at the same time, but most men have had that experience where they've had an ejaculation that's just kind of like, not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. And then another one where it was a huger deal.
Yeah.
And that's when the two are together. And ejaculation is simply I'm going to make Gary work here because I think he's having to bleep this out every time. Sorry, Gary. Is just a rhythmic contraction of muscles. Mm-hmm. And that causes that, whereas orgasm is an entirely different experience. It's an energetic experience.
I'll say.
So you can actually separate those two. And when those two become separate, it also changes that evolutionary design a little bit.
Well, it often has something to do with the circumstances and the people involved.
Well, it's true. And the fact that we're also not training anybody to be responsible for their own sexual energy. You know, most people, when puberty hits and boys experience this huge surge in sexual energy, they're taught to get rid of it. They're taught to give it away. They're taught that they need to do something with it, and it's somebody else's responsibility, like, ooh, she turned me on. Mm-hmm. Instead of learning to take their sexual energy and using it in their own body, moving the energy up in their body, keeping their sexual energy, and using it for things other than just trying to get rid of it. It's frustrating when it's only located in one place in your body, but when you can actually move that intense energy into the rest of your body, it's not as... it doesn't have that driving force that you're talking about, which creates all these problems for men.
Well, you're talking about men turning their physical energy towards sports?
No, anything. Well, I mean, creativity, sports, anything else, but just moving it up out of their sex center into the rest of their body. So it's not just this frustration in this one little area that you think you're going to die if you don't do something with it.
But do you feel that men can do that without involving some sort of physical activity? Can they mentally do it?
Yeah, of course, right. Yeah, and that's what Tantra teaches, is how to take that energy and do something else with it and move it through your body. It's the force of creativity. So
the difficulty here is there aren't that many Tantra teachers hanging around the high schools.
Well, it's true. You know, it is true, and it is one of the things that I'll be working on is helping educate teenagers what to do, both men and women, with all their sexual energy. Because that's why we're having all these, teen pregnancies. And, well, that's why we're having what you were talking about, what men are driven to just because their sexual energy is all in one place, what they'll do when they stop thinking.
Yeah.
And so you tell me about some of your research. I mean, tell me more about what you've been looking into with this.
Well, the key thing was what you mentioned, that men were not meant to be monogamous. And if you go back to the days of the caveman, when they didn't stray far from the cave, I'm quoting Desmond Morris, the anthropologist, there was a lot of loyalty because there was no place to go. You couldn't travel too far. And you didn't have to worry too much about what you looked like. And you didn't have too much competition in the village. And now you fast forward to today, when people are dressed for success and dressed to look good, and women in particular can make themselves look more physically attractive. People are away at work. They travel on business. They live to be 90 years old, and it's very difficult, more difficult now to be monogamous than ever before. You've got more women in the workplace as well. That's a factor. Mm-hmm. You have women that are become more aggressive than they were 50 years ago, or in the caveman days. So it's a real dilemma. It's a real difficult challenge to try to stay loyal to one person for 60 years.
Well, and then with the advent of porn, most of the men I've talked to that are monogamous are using pornography to stay monogamous, though that isn't really monogamous either, in a way. You know, the energy is going somewhere else.
I think that's a good point, though. I mean, before pornography was on the internet, what would you do? I mean,
Sears magazine, I hear.
Yeah, well,
National Geographic.
I know. Yeah, ads for bras.
That's right.
In the newspaper. Well, I think it does provide an outlet for men that didn't have, and again, it's motion. It's not just static photographs in Playboy magazine.
Right.
So, and after a while, if you watch enough porno, even men can get pretty sick of the same old thing.
Well, it's true, and my thing about it is it creates neural pathways in the brain that lead to even less desire for what you have because it's anchoring intense stimulus to one certain or particular visual.
That's possible.
So we're becoming even more dissatisfied with what we have at home, and and it's a problem. I have men calling me about it.
I'm sure.
Saying, hey, I've got this beautiful woman that I love and girlfriend, and I'm just finding myself not as turned on by her. I ask them, what do you look at in porn? It's somebody completely different, and they're anchoring to that intensity to that constantly.
Well, the porn industry is huge. It's massive, and part of it is anybody who's got a stash of porno doesn't have just one tape or one DVD. He's got a bunch of them because you watch the same one 2 or 3 times. It's the same thing as getting bored with your wife.
Yeah.
Getting bored with the same.
No, we're not. So we're not monogamous to our porn either?
No.
Oh,
no, not at all.
Look how dreadful this is.
It's a problem. It's a real problem in my mind.
And so
it's expensive.
Well, yeah, I would imagine that there is a lot of money spent there. Part of the problem here is that once again, this is about keeping all this sexual energy in one place in the body. And I really, really, I believe that part of this 40 million sexless couples in the United States and the 61% divorce rate and all this bankrupt in the bedroom stuff is because we just don't understand what to do with our sexual energy over a long period of time.
And how does the average person figure out what to do with it?
They don't. That's the whole problem. They don't. We're sexually ignorant. We're okay with procreation sex, and we've now, become sophisticated in our sex. So we have button pushing sex. She gets hers, you get yours. Check that box, everybody's fine. But that's not going to sustain anybody for longer than about 7 years.
Yeah.
Because after a while, that's just all rote. What do you do? Well, you get educated. That's why my mission in the world is to eradicate sexual ignorance, because we're in a lot of trouble. And I hear we're going to be living longer and longer.
This reminds me, last night was reading Newsweek, and Quinlan, who writes a column, said, let's talk about sex. And it was all about sex education. And she said one of the mistakes of sex education, which is directed to younger kids, is that there's no talk about pleasure. It's simply, here's what it's all about. She said it's like talking about salmonella without addressing the fact that food tastes good.
Right.
So,
Well, they're talking procreation sex. They're talking genital friction. This is the how-to of rudimentary sex.
Yeah.
And enough information to let people know how to do it without the information that tells them about respect and honor and what your body's actually doing. I get in a lot of trouble because I advocate that we educate our kids a lot more than we are about sexuality. I'm not sure why we expect them to, tell them, no, don't talk about it, don't do anything. And then we expect them to somehow create this magical experience for 40 or 50 years in a relationship.
But I think if you get any flack for doing that, I think it's because, young kids from age 13 to 25 are ripe. That's the age, the fertile, driven age.
Right.
And do you advocate they do have sex?
Yeah, I get that all the time. You're telling me my 13-year-old daughter. No. What I advocate is that we explain to kids way before they get to puberty that when you hit puberty, your entire being is going to be screaming to have sex. It's your evolutionary design. Mm-hmm. You're at the peak of all those hormones. You're not crazy. You feel like you're going to die. You can't think about anything else. That's perfectly, completely normal and natural, and it's your sexual energy, nobody else's. And this is what you do with your sexual energy. It's not somebody else's responsibility. If you were to teach them that it's perfectly normal, that all this is going to happen, and what to do with their own sexual energy, where to channel it, how to use it, then there wouldn't be this conflict. I mean, right now we're telling them don't do it. I don't think kids should be having sex at 13. I don't think they should be having sex at 17. I don't know. There's an age that for each person is right. I can't make that decision. I have a daughter. I certainly don't want my daughter having sex before she is in a situation where she feels loved and respected for herself, and that she loves and respects the person she's with.
You mentioned your daughter, and I think it's interesting still that we tend to be more protective of our daughters than our sons.
Well, no, I mean, I think that, we need to be as protective of our sons because they're just as confused.
Yeah.
They've got these raging hormones happening, and all the information they're getting is go out and get you some.
Well, don't you think that the unspoken channeling of that energy is sports, after-school activities, part-time jobs?
Sure, yeah, keep them busy, keep them busy and out of trouble.
Yeah.
That's part of it. We used to work hard, right? We used to have to go hunting and you go out and kill your mastodon and stuff like that. We don't have as much of that going on, and yet in our foods and in our we're inundating, we're throwing sex in front of everybody all the time.
Yeah. From
really early ages, just boom, 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 and then not telling them this is normal, this is natural, this is what you need to do with it. You can use it. When you have this sexual energy, you can use physical activity, but you can use breath work. I mean, the biggest fundamental thing to use is breath work. Learning how to breathe. Yeah, breathing. Breath
Panting.
work. Not panting, yeah. Heavy breathing.
Yeah.
Using breath work to bring up that energy that's stored in one place and move it up through your body.
How do you feel these sort of things could be taught in the schools through even sex education programs?
Well, I mean, if we were teaching breath work as a form of meditation and breath work as a form of visualizing, even moving anxiety out of your body, moving tension out of your body,
right.
It's the same thing.
Right.
Those are energetic feelings. Those are feelings of hormones are changing. You can take one breath and completely change your physiology.
Really?
Yeah. So if you were in that heightened state, and that's what Tantra uses to heighten the state even more, is just breath work with intent and visualization of what to do with this energy. So if we were teaching kids, like I teach my daughter, how to use her breath when she's upset.
How old is she?
She's 5. And how to use her breath when she's upset, and how to change her state. and excuse me, that's really what we would be teaching. So they could have basic sex education, but with the understanding that, you're going to be hit by these hormones and you're going to feel like you're crazy, and you're not. And it's okay to talk to me or talk to people. If you actually told them what was going to happen, they'd be talking more.
Do you think people should be more open about these things with their children?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, my daughter understood mating. Of course, she grew up on an animal rescue farm, but, she was understood the concept that, people or animals mate, and that they have babies doing that. And she, in fact, told me at one point, Mom, I want a baby sister. You should mate with a man. And I said, excellent. And she goes, but he shouldn't be a married man because that's not okay. I don't even know where she got that, but she already had that at 4.
Just logic, I guess.
Yeah.
5-year-old logic.
Right. And then recently she just asked me, so how does mating happen? And I got to say to her, well, honey, the boy puts his penis inside the girl's yoni, and which is what we call the vagina, and he puts his sperm in there, and that goes to the egg, and the egg and the sperm get together, and they create a baby. And she's like, okay.
Okay. She just said okay?
Yeah.
She wasn't kind of puzzled or shocked or?
No, because, I think when the kids ask the questions, you give them the answers. You don't need to be super elaborate. You just give them a simple answer.
You just have one child, but do you know when kids start asking those questions, and at what time?
Kids will start asking those questions at a pretty early age. I know at this age, everybody's starting to do the whole, more awareness of their bodies. Boys and girls are running around, if they're allowed to check out other girls' and boys' bodies, they would be doing that. This is the time of the doctor playing.
Oh, I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah, most people did. It's a perfectly normal thing to do.
Before even knowing what sex is.
Right, and it has nothing to do with sex. That's why people get all freaked out, and it's like, this is not about sex. This is about your body. This is like sticking your finger in your ear. Okay? This is the time that you mess kids up by having a charge on it because you're embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, oh, stop that, you know?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, instead of like, hey, honey, that's great, you're touching yourself. As a rule, because of the society we live in, this is what I would say. It'd be like, hey, honey, that's fabulous. I'm glad you're enjoying your body. We live in a society that people are uncomfortable with that in public.
Right.
See, and so I'm not telling her that it's bad or embarrassing or a problem. I'm telling her that in society today, this makes people uncomfortable.
Right, right.
And so you would want to do that on your own. Because if you say, that's something you shouldn't do in public or not in front of anybody, you should only keep that to yourself, then you're going to ask them later on when they're adults to share their sexuality with somebody. It's going to be tough. You've programmed them to do all this alone.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky for most parents, though. There's certainly a lot of discomfort dealing with it. I don't know if it's quite as true with the current generation of parents as it was 50 years ago.
No, it still is. I mean, if you're personally awkward about your sexuality, then you'll put that out to your child.
I remember my mother asked me if I knew the facts of life when I was 14 years old. She asked me in front of my father and my brothers.
Yeah.
Not too bright.
Right. Yeah, what do you do with that, right?
Of course I do, Mom. She left it at that. She was so glad to hear me say yes.
Right. I mean, interesting that it was left to her, even though you had a brother and a father.
Well, she just took it up on herself. I don't think she talked to my dad about it. She just kind of, it was on my birthday,
That's the ritual passage of 14.
She tried to tell me about birth control when I got married at age 24.
Oh, that's nice.
No, actually, we were Catholic, so way back then, it was the rhythm method was all you could use.
Right.
I didn't have the heart to tell her my fiance was already on the pill.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Well, we tend to wait too long.
Yeah.
We really, really do wait too long. I mean, if a parent is waiting until the kid is already at puberty to talk about these things, you're too late. Because people have been talking about it in school. Somebody said to me that they didn't want their daughter to be the one educating everybody on the playground. I said, I totally want my daughter to be educating everybody because she'll have the right information.
Well, what about the fact that men and women do approach sex and needs? Their whole idea about it is different. Well, you can explain physically how it's done, but
it's completely different. Men have sex to show love or to release energy. And women actually bring in energy into their bodies. They're actually taking a man's energy in. And so they are wanting to create intimacy.
Yeah, I'm just getting to the point. I think that needs to be explained very clearly. Well, if it's possible to explain that clearly to certainly teenagers. Because even when people get married, they don't understand. They don't quite understand
what
the woman's needs are versus the man's needs.
Right. That, women want to talk to create intimacy, and of course men want to have this physical connection to create intimacy. And this is why things go awry, because if a woman steps back away from allowing sex because she's upset, which is what happens, right? Yeah. The woman gets upset about something, he's hurt her feelings. She steps back and takes sex away. He's now left with no way to show her love because he hasn't been taught anything else.
Right.
So he's trying to hook up with her physically. She's repelled, saying you can't do that until you connect with me intimately. And the next thing you know, you have a chasm starting. And it becomes this power struggle that they're not even really aware of.
Exactly.
And yeah, we definitely need to be speaking about this and letting girls and boys understand that, in school when they're young, boys are saying to the girl, I love you, I like you, whatever, because they're so intense on their physical energy being moved towards her, that they do feel that right then.
You're right, they do. And as you mentioned earlier, when the man's done, he either goes to sleep or loses interest. And the women don't understand that either.
Right, well, the men don't understand it.
No.
Everything shuts down energetically. Your chakras all shut down.
Yeah.
After that energy is released for a man. And he does, even if he loves the woman, suffers from this genetic, this evolutionary disinterest.
Do you think there should be different degrees? I mean, sex education in the schools today is really at the elementary school, middle school level. Do you think they should get more into that deeper emotional differences in high school? Should they still have sex education in high school?
I think what about the parents? I think that we can do some rudimentary things in school, but really this starts at the very, very beginning. At ages like 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and, all the way through where, how you express your love in your house. We're role modeling sexless marriages. We have this intense, all this Hollywood, people are having sex, everybody's single, everybody's getting it on everywhere. And then we show this sexless marriage.
Well, I think parents do that partly because their children have a certain discomfort of imagining their parents having sex.
Well, that's great, but that's just part of it. You roll your eyes and you're like, oh, yeah, my parents. But the reality is kids feel secure when that's going on.
Think so?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, all these other cultures where people, live really close, all in one house, and it's known that the people are having sex.
Yeah,
and
they just pull a curtain.
Yeah, exactly. The kids are comforted because they understand that their parents are connected, that they're connected in a way, and there's this love and this satisfaction that comes from that. Mm-hmm. Instead of, if we feel weird that our parents are having sex, that tells us something's wrong. My parents were very affectionate. I mean, they would never have sex. I mean, I'm not advocating, once again, that people have sex in front of their kids. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But my parents were very openly affectionate and very flirting with each other, and it was obvious they were very much into each other.
Yeah, I think that's a different level, though. I think people like seeing their parents hug, and maybe even kiss, but showing some sort of affection, that's very, very comforting to kids. But to have the mom and dad say, all right, don't come in or come close on the bedroom door, leave us alone.
Well, I advocate that. I tell parents you need to have a sign that says we're practicing the art of love, and you let your kids know when that's hanging on the door that it doesn't matter what sounds are coming, everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's being killed. And, put on your headphones, turn up your iPod, whatever. I still think that we are role modeling then that is a perfectly normal, in fact, desirable state of being in relationship.
Well, how many people do you think feel like that?
Not enough. I mean, not enough. We got 40 million sexless couples in the United States, Jim.
Yeah.
Those are the ones talking about it.
Yeah.
So, no, obviously, we have a problem. I mean, that's the whole point. Sex is not a luxury. It is an absolutely integral part of our very being.
It's interesting in my research, which is I would have to admit is not as comprehensive maybe as it should be. I certainly never came across any books or programs that talked about what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it's out there, but it's also kind of, unfortunately, a lot of the people that teach this stuff are kind of they're checked out of mainstream. They've put themselves in such a place that they use language and incense and I mean things that mainstream people find objectionable.
Yeah.
It just raises like flake or it raises too many problems, so they can't access the information. Mm-hmm. I mean, my whole point is being mainstream. I want to take away all the tantric Sanskrit words that might put somebody off. I want to take away. I want to put it in such simple language and in such simplicity that everybody can get it and go, oh, my God, we got to be on board with this. Mm-hmm. And that's really my goal. And so I think the information's out there. The information is out there, but it's done in such a way that it's upsetting everybody or, making people say, I can't go with that. I can't.
Yeah.
That's really why. I mean, it is there. And, Jim, we are going to take a momentary break here.
Okay.
If that's groovy with you. And we'll be back to talk more in just a few moments.
one of the 40 million sexless couples in the U.S.? Are you wondering why having sex leaves you feeling lonely? Are you suffering from the myths of sexual dysfunction? Do you know in your heart that there has to be more than what you're currently getting out of making love? To rid yourself of sexual ignorance, get more out of your lovemaking, and find out more about spiritual sexual connection, then you need to check out www.thetantrateacher.com to receive your free copy of the ebook called Secrets of the Tantra Teacher. Don't suffer another minute without the sexual loving and ecstatic bliss you were born to receive. Get to www.thetantrateacher.com right now. That's www.thetantrateacher.com.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra Teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra Teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra Teacher. 206-276-2735.
Contact talkradio.com, making a difference and leading the way.
Now is your chance to be part of the show. Call 877-230-3062. Call in with your questions or thoughts and talk with the host and their guest. Again, that number is 877-230-3062.
And we are back. Tanya talking with Jim O'Connor and talking about, interestingly, we started with men and lust, and we've kind of segued into, how do we teach our kids about what to do with all this sexual energy and who's responsible? Where do we start? How do we understand this? And how does that lead to, helping the 40 million sexless couples in the United States right now? We're bankrupt in the bedroom. We've got a bigger problem than the economy, people. I mean, I am so serious because this kind of sexless lives, or at least sexless within the relationship, because of course the porn industry and the sex workers and the erotic massage makers workers are making a whole lot of money right now. They are actually doing better than they have in a long time. So we're sexless in our relationships, but certainly not sexless. So that goes to what you were talking about with lust, right, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I read this a couple of years ago, that the pornography industry is bigger in dollars than all Hollywood and all professional sports combined.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I mean, it's huge. And it's not just 10 perverts watching that stuff.
No.
It's a lot of, although a lot of people, a lot of married couples use it as a stimulus.
Sure. And they'll ask me about that. Can we do that? I said, if there's two of you and you do that every once in a while, that's cool. If you're using it exclusively or using it a lot, it means that you're not tuned into each other.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're using other visuals, like fantasy.
Yeah,
fantasy,
exactly.
There's nothing wrong with fantasy except that you're completely checked out from your own personal experience.
Yeah.
So, Tantra teaches you how to actually check into your experience. So when I teach the art of self-pleasuring to men or women, and I use that word instead of masturbation, because it's really masturbation is about getting rid of your sexual energy, releasing sexual tension, whereas self-pleasuring is about being in the experience of pleasure in your body without a necessary goal ending.
Growing up as a Catholic boy, it was called self-abuse.
Oh, well, yeah, you were abusing yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like your idea better.
Yeah, self-pleasuring. I mean, we have these amazing bodies, right? I mean, these amazing bodies that are capable. I tell people, most people right now are only living in a 2 on a pleasure scale to infinity. A 2. What we're capable of pleasure in our bodies. And I'm talking about our fingers, our taste buds, our ears, our sight. All of it, every single molecule is imbued with the ability to be so ecstatic and to be so aroused, we're really selling ourselves completely short by just having all this energy in one area.
And do you think that's the main reason for that would be inhibition?
Uneducation. I mean, not educated. How often have you heard this?
Lack of education, sure.
Yeah, I mean, but how often have you heard what I'm saying?
No, not too often.
Right. I mean, because who's talking about it? I mean, that's the whole thing, is that we have this one idea of sexuality, and it's this microscopic idea.
Yeah.
And we're asking it to be like the pinnacle of relationships and the pinnacle of, our dreams. And it's just astounding to me that, I mean, more people spend time researching their computer than what to do with each other. The woman's body is amazing. It's an intricate, fabulous, beautiful, and confusing experience. And yet men spend very little time either getting to know their own woman's body or reading and researching about what the body is capable of and their own bodies.
This is true throughout history. I mean, throughout history, the female form has been an object of beauty. But how it works has just not been
that
discussed.
Mystery. Well, that's because it's mainly in the mind.
Yeah.
I mean, really, women want to live in sexual tension. See, men want to get rid of sexual tension, and women want to live in it. And that's really some of our biggest problem, is that part in high school that women love the most when they're still virgins, and it's all about the making out and the titillation and the wondering and the ooh, and all that. We love that. We would live in that space forever. That was like hell for men.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. Why in the world would I want to live in that space? And so we're not teaching men that what women want. We're not teaching women either. I mean, I'm an advocate for both. Okay, this is not just how to please the woman, but men have such a tiny aspect of pleasure that they're experiencing. They don't understand their full capability.
Yeah.
And if they did, if the couples were to be able to get together with education and to inspire each other, and like I say, make love to each other's souls, you wouldn't have any problems. I mean, really, we'd be healing each other. We'd be healing our communities. We'd be healing our planet.
It's really interesting, too, when you look at what the popular media provides for the two genders. Gives you example romance novels, where there's now romance novels that they call juicy.
Yeah, the steamy romance novels and
they're but in the romance novels, which are only read or primarily read by women, the sexual tension is there for the women. It's all from the woman's viewpoint.
Right.
It goes on and on and on. And if the guy reads this, let's get to the point here.
Right. He's like, what's up with that? I was in my dating class. Dating coaching program. I'm talking about the fact that, men think that, we talk about women want to be taken, in the sense they want a man to be in control and to be in command. Maybe not control, but they want him to be in command.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is there was 40 pages of buildup before that being taken, right?
Well, that's right. Well, because what men read, I don't even know if they still have penthouse letters.
Sure.
But the penthouse letters were typically a guy's walking along the beach and he discovers this beautiful naked woman. They have wild, crazy sex. No words are spoken.
Right.
And he never sees her again.
Exactly.
No commitment.
Right. It was a page from beginning to end.
Yeah.
While a romance novel, which is really I think men should pick up some of these romance, because some of these things are just, they are so incredibly hot. And it's funny because a lot of the older women read these things, right?
Well, I know.
Come into the bookstore asking for the spicy read on the romance novel.
I wrote a novel, and I put some sex scenes in there, and I was sort of uncomfortable with it, so I went to the romance writers group here in Chicago, and they had spicy night, and some of the women read their sex scenes.
Right.
And I was afraid mine was too graphic. Well, I wasn't even close.
Right.
I wasn't even close.
Right.
And a lot of these women were over 7 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're all an education for me.
That's right. They're all having their amazing experiences. But if a man were to pick up one of these and actually read them and really understand that 40 pages of buildup, or even 80 pages of buildup, is really important in the dance of love for women, We want to be in that sexual tension all the time.
But I think physiologically men can't last that long.
Well, with training, of course they can.
Well, they don't want to.
Well, they do once they learn what's in it for them if they do.
Yeah, right.
Because, right, frankly, the 11 minutes of orgasm a year is what the average man has right now. 11 minutes. All that work for 11 minutes.
I know.
What is that all about?
It's such a waste.
Right. And in 2 to 3 months, you could learn how to have complete full-body orgasms that last for minutes or, if you're really good, they can last for hours.
You're writing a book on this, right? To be a bestseller.
Yeah, well, it's there. The information's there, but like I said, once again, it's not palatable for most people.
But is it really there? Where do men get? Where do men read about Tantra?
Well, there's like Montauk Chia writes about the multi-orgasmic man, and he does a nice job of it. Once again,
who's ever heard of him?
Yeah, I mean, no, they're out there. I mean, you go to a Tantra section in a bookstore, you'll find a lot of information, but once again, it's not palatable for most people because they're using words and terms that, if you are religious, you might find you think might be going against your religion. They're using thoughts of energy and that type of thing, which a lot of people would say, that's a little woo-woo for me.
Right.
It's too out there. All these people, and then men misconceive what's being said, and they think that every experience needs to be with the incense and the candles and chanting for 2 hours, and they're like, I'm just not up for that. I just want to get laid.
Well, this comes back to my thesis that true lust is really what men are. It's not true love; it's true lust. They just want to do it, and it's hard for them to imagine anything different or to develop the patience, even though in the long run it's good for them because they'll get invited back. They do it right.
Yes. Yeah, and we're advocating a lot of that in these big seduction communities that are out there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of men out there teaching seduction, pickup artists, that type of thing.
Right.
And a lot of, I actually have there's a group up in Canada. They're my students, Lifestyle Transformations, and they're awesome guys. They're my students that run the thing. They're actually teaching how to add value, but still sometimes, it's that ego of how many phone numbers did I get? But you know what? I'm telling you, men that do that are lonely as well. That's a very short-lived experience. Mm-hmm. Because you burn out on that. Men want the same thing women do in the long run. Men want to be appreciated, loved. They want a deep connection. If a man has an experience with somebody that's trained like I am in the bedroom, they don't ever want to go back. They just don't.
Yeah.
It seems very empty and hollow. And I understand because when I teach men's classes and I'm explaining these concepts and these techniques, half of the men are looking at me like, you're a woman, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, whatever, okay? Yeah. And then I'll bring a man on that has practiced this, that knows this, that understands it. And you watch his expression and you watch him talk about this. Mm-hmm. And the men go, wow, okay.
That's what I think, just as you were saying, how they respond to you, I was thinking you need a man to explain it, and that's what you do.
Right. But how I hook them now, I finally figured out, okay, this is how I can get men to pay attention. Because, men are told that they need to last a really long time. They've got this whole hang up about being premature and the rest of that. I don't believe in that, by the way. You come when you come. But there's ways to learn to extend your control or your consciousness so you can choose when you do this. The part that women want to last a long time is those moments when you're at a 9.8 and your inevitability is already happening. Your energy is so huge and so big, they want that to last for 20 minutes.
How does the man recognize that point?
Well, he recognizes it because he's not thinking of anything else at that moment. That he's done. He's about done. He's in the highest sensation he can experience right before going over the edge.
Yeah.
And that's the ride women want for 20 or 25 minutes.
Right, but when he's at that edge...
How does he do that?
He can't do it for another 20 minutes.
Yes, he can, if he has training.
Really? Yeah, think about his mother watching him or something.
No. You don't want to detach. Because as soon as you detach, a woman feels your energy leave, and that is not interesting at all.
Uh-huh.
A man should not be going away, plugging along away, thinking about building decks or his mom or whatever. You might as well stop. Women actually cannot stand that. If you disconnect from her, if you disconnect from what you're feeling, you need to stop.
Yeah, they do, and they can sense it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are taking your energy inside our bodies. And we're that hooked in and that close. And if you check out, it's done. So the art is to learn how to stay engaged and stay in the most intense experience you can experience for a long duration. And it's completely doable. And really, for most men that are serious about doing the work, it's 2 to 3 months away.
Can you give us some idea? I mean, how a man does it? I'm sure any man listening to you or when you first present this say, I can't do that. I can't. It's like stopping breathing.
Right. Well, I mean, it's self-practice. You start with a solo practice. And in fact, I have I'm just working on a CD, me guiding you CD right now of how to do the practice. And it's a solo practice to start, and you work on you work on body awareness and learning what arousal, what number you're at when your muscles start to rhythmically contract. Mm-hmm. So you have to pay attention to your body. Once they start rhythmically contracting, you're in trouble. Yeah. That's when you need to breathe, push out on the muscles that are contracting, relax, build the energy back up again. But see, men are so afraid of losing their erection that it scares them to do this.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's like it'll come back, dude. It's not it's not like the last one you're ever going to have in your life. So getting over that point of, well, wow, if I lose my energy a little bit, and that's why it's a solo practice to start, so you don't have to worry about that. Yeah. But I bring my energy up, I stop the rhythmic contractions, I'm visualizing moving the energy up through my body with breath work, certain specific breath work, and then I'm re-engaging, bringing the arousal up. So we have to expand our capacity for pleasure, first of all. Most men are having very little pleasure. Even though they think it's a lot, it's very little. And
there's with men, the moment before that word we can't say that I think sounds like orgasm is actually very, very appealing.
Right.
And
that's better than once you go over the edge.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
That's the part women want to last for a long time because that's the best part for them too. So that's the part you learn to ride for minutes and conceivably hours if you practice and you really get good at breath work and you get really good at this. I know, and I've been with, because I've trained my partners, men that can ride that for 45 minutes.
That's astounding to me. I mean, I think I would pass out.
Right, and sometimes you do. Well, I mean, that's the whole point is you can't do that to begin with because you're not capable of taking on all that pleasure. Yeah. It's just too much. And that's like women and orgasm. Most women have pathetic orgasms because they haven't expanded their capacity for pleasure. And so it's an art form to learn to expand to more pleasure, to expand to more pleasure, to expand to more pleasure.
Is this also something that a man can learn to release when the woman's about to, so they can have a multiple?
That's that Hollywood thing, everybody climaxing together.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because once you're in that space of understanding how your body works, you can be conscious of your release. Then it becomes a conscious choice of when or if. Most men that practice this don't actually ever do it. They only do it like maybe once every 3 months.
Yeah.
Because they're keeping that arousal and that energy. We have a lot of watered down men walking around in the world, Jim. I mean, we do. We have all these men that are just not in their sexual energy because they're shooting it all away.
Yeah.
And when a man lives in that arousal and he walks in the world in that arousal and it pours it from his heart, he's a warrior. And every woman on the planet knows it when he's near.
Well, if you can package and bottle this idea, you can make $1 million.
I'm there.
That's good.
I'm on Oprah next year.
Are you really?
That's what I'm shooting for. Yeah. I think that it's definitely what we need. I mean, it's definitely what we need. This education is. I mean, you're an incredibly well-read man, and this is a subject that interests you, men and lust.
Yeah.
And I think you probably have a lot of different ideas now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This has been very educational because all my research is more just on here's the way men behave, and here's why it's bad, and here's why it's good, and here's why it doesn't jive with what women are looking for. But in terms of how, this is actually quite frankly the problem with my book was I didn't really have an adequate answer.
Right. What to do about it?
To control this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And so what?
Yeah.
Well, Jim, I told you I'd love to co-author a book with you anytime.
Well, we'll have to think about that. They don't use saltpeter or pepper spray much anymore to calm men down.
No, you don't. Yeah, you really, you don't want to do that. It's not really about that. I once again, I want to say to anybody out there struggling with, they're feeling like their sexual energy is somehow ruling their lives. And women, there are plenty of women with the same issue, okay?
Yeah.
There are women with really super high sex drives that feel like other people need to be responsible for it, that feel like they need to get rid of it out of their bodies. They feel like it's ruling, this whole sex addiction thing, which isn't really about sex. It's more about filling up an emptiness. It really all comes down to the same thing. If we become conscious that our sexuality is a huge, important, desirable, lovely part of our lives, and we actually learn what to do with it, how to use it, how to be conscious of it, and how to utilize it to expand our creativity and our pleasure in our lives, we're going to rock. I mean, there's so many things that would change in the world.
Well, is there a potential downside here? The downside being, if men really learn how to do this right and can extend their moments of pleasure, is their desire for sex going to multiply?
Yeah, well, of course. I live in an extreme women. I mean, I live in an extreme state of arousal 24/7. Does that make me dangerous? I don't know, Gary. I'm looking over there at Gary going, am I dangerous? I don't know.
Yeah.
He looks pretty safe. No, because you're conscious of it then, because it's not anybody else's. See, that's the whole point. It's not anybody else's responsibility. I'm my own best lover. That's another thing that you teach people.
Well, but see, my point is, getting back to my theme of true lust, men just want to have sex, and it creates a lot of problems. Now, if they know how to really prolong it, they're going to want it even more and seek out more avenues.
No, they're going to want it more consciously, actually. That's just the same with educating teens about sex. They don't want it more just because you educate them. Men actually learn to control their sexual energy and what to do with it. They actually become more intentful. They actually get out of that rutting mentality.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they become they're like different human beings walking the planet.
Right.
And
well, that's the part of your concept that a lot of the parts of your concept are difficult to comprehend. I mean, to imagine.
Yeah. Because it's quite foreign. Though there are men that I know, there are men walking this path. They're I mean, it's not just some ideal. It's actually been around for quite a long, long time. We have about 2.5 minutes, I think, here left. Jim, I want you to give me your website, give people a way to get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you.
The best way to reach me is through my email, Jimo, Jimo, at O'ConnorPR, OCONNORPR.com, and my website is O'ConnorPR.com.
O'ConnorPR.com, and so you help people get known.
Yes, in fact, one of our specialties is my wife and I who run the business. One of our specialties is authors.
Excellent.
We do publicity for authors.
Excellent. So when I've got my 2 books that I have almost done out.
Yeah, I'm the man to call.
Exactly. Jim, it has been a lot of fun. And
Absolutely.
I know, and I thank you. I feel actually very, it's very gracious of you to be on my show. I know you're a veteran of many, many really big named shows. So thank you for gracing my humble.
It's a pleasure. My favorite topic, and it's more fun than talking about swearing.
Well, that's so true. And I want to let everybody know you've got to hop on to learningtantra.com. Get on my email list if you're not. Things are definitely hopping. And I just put out 5 new YouTube videos. 5 new YouTube videos. In fact, one of them is my famous the kissing demo, the art of tantric kissing. You can right now hop on my Facebook to find them, or you can hop on YouTube and Google Tanja, Tanja Diamond, or not Google, but YouTube Tanja Diamond, and just scroll on down there, and you will find me. Let me know what you think of them, and keep bringing in those calls and emails. And, that's what I have for you tonight, and we will see you next week. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Gary, and we're out.
You have been listening to the Tantra Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show with your host, Tanja Diamond. Don't miss next week's show at Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, visit our website at www.tanyadiamond.com. That's TANJA for more information on workshops and classes.